आइए हम सुने विज्ञान की अनकही कहानियाँ। आइए हम सुने विज्ञान की अनसुनी कहानियाँ। एक नई दुनिया की आवाज़ आपकी आवाज़, विज्ञान की आवाज़ की आवाज़।
विज्ञान की आवाज़ podcast is a STEM popularization initiative catalyzed and supported by the National Council for Science and Technology Communication, produced by Media for Community Foundation, content support by Kadal Osai FM 90.4 Community Radio, and hosted by V. Krishnan. When I mention the term biomaterial, it may sound far too technical for us to understand until we find that contact lenses are a common example of a biomaterial. In simple terms, biomaterials are substances that have been engineered to interact with biological systems for a medical purpose. Their broad range of application includes medical implants, including heart valves, artificial joints, hearing implants, etc. Methods to promote healing of human tissues, including sutures, dissolvable dressings, etc. Molecular probes and nanoparticles that break through biological barriers and aid in therapy at the molecular level. Biosensors to detect the presence and amount of specific substances and transmit that data. Drug delivery systems that carry and apply drugs at the site of need. Now that we have a general idea about a biomaterial, let's meet the scientist of this episode who specializes in the research of biomaterials exclusively in its application of drug delivery and wound healing materials. Dr. Rekha, Scientist G, Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute of Medical Sciences and Technology, Thiruvananthapuram.
So I am Rekha. I am from Trivandrum and both my parents were working. So from school days itself, my dream was to become a scientist. So I pursued that and did my BSc in chemistry, MSc in biochemistry, then MPhil and PhD in biochemistry. Then I was always interested in working in medical areas, so health related problems. So I got an opportunity here in Sri Chitra. So I was working in oral insulin delivery systems in a project, and thereby I got introduced to a very exciting area of a challenging area of drug delivery systems, where we develop various biomaterials or nanoparticles for loading the therapeutic molecule and to increase the bioavailability of that particular drug by means of these small nanoparticles.
DDS or drug delivery system is one of the areas of biomaterial applications and a rapidly growing field of research that could bring beneficial results in therapeutic uses for diseases. We all know that therapeutic medications can be taken in a variety of ways, through injections, orally like a tablet or capsule, or even by inhaling. But regardless of the way they are taken, they will still have certain side effects. And have you wondered why? Well, to put it simply, instead of reaching only the site of necessity, these medications also spread to other areas of the body, causing side effects that may be harmful. In fact, to make certain medications work and reach the site of necessity, they need to be enabled enough to cross the biological barriers in our body. And dear listeners, this is where DDS, that is drug delivery system, comes into play. For examples, vaccines work by providing our immune system with instructions to recognize and attack a pathogen. In the case of COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, its packaging made of lipid nanoparticles protects the fragile mRNA from getting degraded and facilitates its safe delivery into the cells. I know you as listeners must be already intrigued to know more. So let's listen from Dr. M.R. Rekha on an area of research concerning nanotechnology-based drug delivery systems.
So as I mentioned, I am working in biomaterials. If I say in very simple terms, and these biomaterials are being used for various drug delivery applications. So as we know, in conventional drug delivery, we are familiar with injections, tablets, capsules or oral solutions. But all these have its own limitations. For example, in the case of chemotherapeutic drugs, the injections are given, and instead of going to that tumor area alone, it will be spreading throughout the body and reaching the normal tissues and causing side effects. In the case of diabetes, we have to give injections. So in the case of injections, insulin, it is a therapeutic molecule, and in normal physiology, when we are having food, the glucose level goes up and the pancreas will be releasing insulin, and the primary site of action is liver. But in the case of injection, the insulin is reaching first the peripheral bloodstream that can has its own limitations. So in order to give it orally, being a protein, it will get digested like any other protein within our intestine, and being a macromolecule, insulin cannot cross across the intestinal barriers also. So by encapsulating in small particles, because everybody should understand, so nanoparticles, they are very small, like 100 to 200 nm in our case, and insulin is getting encapsulated there, and it is protected from the enzymes within the stomach or acids, and being small particles, it can cross across the intestinal barrier and reach the liver. That is site of action. So then I am also working on wound healing biomaterials, which I am focusing on the translational aspects as well.
Biomaterials play an integral role in medicine today, facilitating healing, restoration, and therapy. Biomaterials can be natural or synthetic.
So here I will focus on wound healing biomaterials. As we all know, there are various types of wounds, especially in the case of diabetic wounds, chronic wounds, infected wounds, etc. The healing will be slower. And in the case of final stage diabetic patients, in some cases even amputations are also taking place because the wounds are not healing. It is gangrenous, and we have, in order to save the rest of the limb, we had to amputate that limb. So the problem with the chronic wounds is that we have to give higher doses, especially in the case of infected wounds, high doses of antibiotics. And because of the necrotic nature of that particular area, the transfer of drug from the bloodstream to the wound tissue is limited, and the bioavailability is very less. And in the case of diabetic patients, already their kidney and liver may be compromised as well. So giving high doses of antibiotic drug is also not feasible. So in that case, we have developed a biomaterial based wound healing material which can imbibe the drug and can be delivered continuously locally at the wound site for 48 hours. And this wound healing material can be changed each alternate days, and thereby the therapeutic drug will be directly given at the wound site. And because it is inside that biomaterial, it will be getting released slowly, and only the required doses will be reaching the wound site, and it will aid in the healing. So we have developed one particular product like that, and we are looking for translation, interested companies, so that they can take up and proceed further. So some animal experiments were also done using infected wound models, and we got good results.
Biomaterials play an integral role in medicine today, facilitating healing, restoration, and therapy. Biomaterials can be natural or synthetic. Now let's hear from Dr. DrRekha about the potential benefits of her research on a common man or on the nation's field of science as a whole.
Actually, such kind of products are not available in our Indian market. But in our case, the advantage is that the doctor can identify the microbe in the infected wound, and the exact drug against that particular organism can be loaded onto this biomaterial. So we have a choice that, but and there are products from Europe, etc., where gentamicin loaded collagen sponges are available. But the problem is that the gentamicin drug is already loaded in that sponge, and only it can be applied to those wounds where gentamicin will work. But there may be microbes which are resistant to gentamicin. So I am saying just an example. So preloaded antimicrobial drug-loaded sponges are available, and that too from European or US countries. But in this case, we have developed a sponge in which the clinician can load the appropriate drug and can be given to the patient.
Sounds like we are making rapid advances in wound healing therapeutics, especially with the application of biomaterials. Under the Biomedical Technology wing of Sri Chitrai Tirunal Institute for Medical Science, the division of Bioceramics was established in the year 1994 as a dedicated laboratory aiming at the indigenous development of bioceramic materials for bone graft applications. The research and development activities in the division has released a series of bone graft substitute products in the Indian market, complying with international standards. Following this, Dr. Rekha MR talks about the ranking of India in this particular area of research.
So globally, we cannot say the ranking of India in this area, but one thing we can say that the majority of the advanced wound care products we are using are imported. But the good news is that some of the certain Indian companies are also coming up recently. So at least 50% of the market is still by foreign companies like Johnson & Johnson, Smith & Nephew, Convatec, etc. But we have other industries from our India also coming up, like collagenesis, etc. So hopefully we can think that many of us are working toward developing our own products in our country. So sooner or later we may also enter into that. Yeah, majority of the advanced wound care products we are using are coming from abroad only, imported products, European and US products mainly.
You are listening to Vigyan Ki Awaaz podcast, catalyzed and supported by the National Council for Science and Technology Communication, produced by Media for Community Foundation, content support by Kadalosai FM 90.4 Community Radio, and hosted by V. Krishnan. These podcasts are aimed to disseminate Indian research stories in simple language, understandable for a common man. Now, could you tell us how Indian industries are associated with this project?
We are in the final stages of this translational aspect. So we are looking for industry who are interested in taking up our technology.
Interesting. Can you please give us a rundown on the patents, research papers, and the awards you have won?
I have 4 international patents, actually in oral insulin. They are pH sensitive nanoparticles for protein delivery. So then that is European, Canadian and Japanese patent is there. Then one US patent on removal of chromatin fragments from the systemic circulation using pollutant conjugated antibody. Then for again oral insulin delivery system, I have for developing the free flowing powder of the hydrogel. So that patent is also recently granted, that is Indian patent. Then for wound healing I have filed one. In the publication side we are doing, already 3 PhD students have taken their degree. Then we are publishing in certain high impact journals like International Biological Macromolecules, Carbohydrate Polymers, Journal of Material Chemistry, etc.
Thank you, Dr. Rekha, for spending your time with us and sharing your research stories. I'm sure listeners learned a lot about the therapeutic applications of biomaterials. In conclusion, what are your views on the Vigyan Ki Awaaz podcast as a STEM popularization initiative?
I thank Department of Science and Technology for this initiative. Thank you.
The National Council for Science and Technology Communication is mandated to communicate science and technology to the masses, stimulate scientific and technological temper, and coordinate and orchestrate such efforts throughout the country. The programs of NCSTC aim at building capacity for informed decision making in the community and promote scientific thinking, They are devoted towards societal upliftment through the dissemination of scientific knowledge in an informed manner, and build programs with the help of different media which percolate down to every nook and corner of society. Thank you, Dr. M.R. Rekha, and thank you, dear listeners. That was really an eye-opener. You are listening to Vigyan Ki Awaaz podcast, catalyzed and supported by the National Council for Science and Technology Communication, produced by Media for Community Foundation, content support by Kadalosai 90.4 Community Radio, and hosted by V. Krishnan. We will meet again in another exciting episode. Thank you for listening. Till then, bye and take care.